We're back from Watches and Wonders. What an amazing time. Today I wanted to recap everything I was fortunate enough to see, go over all the amazing new releases, and provide with you guys my top 5 watches released so far this year. So let's get right into it. It feels so good to be back here in Chicago now at the British Jewelry Boutique on 120 East Oak Street. And today I wanted to present to you what I felt was some of the best releases this year. I think a lot of brands had some notable releases, a very, very strong year from the likes of Rolex, Patek, Vacheron especially, I think, had probably the best releases of any brand this year. But let's start off with my first pick, and that is the Ulis Nardan Diver Air. I think what Ulis Nardan achieved with the new Diver Air is a spectacular overall release. The reason being is that it was able to capture the essence of a super lightweight watch that's extremely ergonomic. Something like, for example, that I love is the Richard Mille Arm 6702 in carbon in particular, that wears just like that racing machine on the wrist. Very slim, very sleek, and of course super lightweight. And I think Ulis Nardan captured that essence at a much more affordable price point that is very true to the Ulis Nardan design. Of course, super robust, the water resistance is incredible, and also super wearable. So let's get into the text and specs. We're looking at a case size of 44 millimeters, but I will say I have a 6 1/4 inch wrist. It fit my wrist absolutely perfectly. A water resistance of 200 meters, a power reserve of 90 hours, a retail price of $38,000, and an overall weight of just 52 grams, including the strap itself. Now, how was UN able to achieve such a lightweight watch? Well, first and foremost, they're using a bunch of different carbon composites, and the actual movement itself is in titanium and fully skeletonized. It's incredible to think what Ulis Nardan achieved. Again, at their price point, there's just nothing else like it on the market. And personally, it was one of my absolute favorite releases, and definitely something I'm keeping an eye out for my own personal collection. I really love the design, really love the aesthetic, and of course, in terms of wearability and proportions, I think they hit an absolute home run overall. Now, moving on to pick number 2, I was actually going to pick the Tiger Iron GMT dial from Rolex, but I actually ended up changing my pick right before filming this, and that is going to be the Rolex Land Dweller. Now, I know some people dislike the watch overall. They don't like the dial, for example. I'm certainly a big proponent of that. I don't like the overall dial aesthetic. It feels really, really imbalanced. I don't like the name either, the Land Dweller. I think it just sounds a little bit weird. Obviously, it makes sense in their collection, right? The Sea Dweller, not the Land Dweller. I mean, I wonder if they're going to have maybe an Air Dweller and it's going to be a new chronograph or something like that. But overall, generally, I think it's a good first introduction to the overall lineup. The watch itself, right, the case, the bracelet is super sleek. The open display case back is really, really sharp. And of course, you get that new proprietary movement with the double escape wheel system. It isn't based off the Brigade Natural escapement, but it is still a double impulse wheel escapement, which is really, really notable because at the scale Rolex is going to make this particular watch, I mean, it's impossible for other brands to really replicate it. This is really done by very few brands in the industry, the likes of Charles Frodsham, F.P. Journe, and Laurent Ferrier. And so to replicate it at this kind of scale is really, really notable. And I think it's really noteworthy for Rolex, who is showing that they're not afraid of innovating and improving upon their existing watch lineups and watch movement. Now, again, I am not a big fan of the dial. I think that will improve in the future. But overall, if I look at the watch itself, right, we're taking a look at its proportions, 40 millimeters in terms of its case diameter, a water resistance of 100 meters, a power reserve of 66 hours, a retail price of $15,350. It's hard to think of an integrated bracelet sports watch like this for around this price point. So the only ones that really come to mind are the GP Laureato. Maybe, for example, you could think of the IWC Engineer. But I think that overall the design of this particular watch hits a little bit more than both of those watches, although I do really like the Engineer, and I would probably pick it over the Land Dweller. The innovation of the movement makes this a little bit better in my personal opinion. And again, I think this is just the first start of this overall model line, and the future releases will be a lot better, especially in terms of the dial aesthetic. The next watch is one that actually flew very under the radar, in my opinion, while we were actually at the fair and just overall online. And that is the release of the Vacheron Constantin Le Cabinetier Solaria Ultra Grand Complication. This is a watch that comes in at a case size of 45 millimeters and under 15 millimeters in thickness, a power reserve of 72 hours, a new world record of 41 complications in the actual wristwatch, and I believe it is a unique piece essentially that was made to order for a customer, so it's already been sold. Now, it's interesting to think that when the Patek Philippe Grandmaster Chime, for example, I believe in 2016 was originally released, this was a watch that was super groundbreaking for the time, that made national headlines, that was really, I would say, kind of, how do I put it, exciting to the watch industry. And with this one, although it kind of hit and a lot of people ultimately were really excited about the release, considering what Vacheron was able to achieve, I don't think that it got the kind of notoriety that it should have had, right? This is a watch that is a one-off that has the most complications of any wristwatch ever made. I mean, the watch itself is incredible in person, and the fact that they were able to achieve regular kind of proportions in terms of like case size and case diameter and case thickness is unbelievable from Vacheron. I think that is really a masterpiece, and it showcases really the technical mastery of the brand. I think it's an incredible showcase, of course, for the 270th anniversary. I love a number of other releases they came out with. Absolutely beautiful timepieces, but I think this one obviously takes the cake just because of the actual technical achievement. It was amazing to sit down with Alexander Schmidt and of course get his take on all the new releases, but I think for me this one takes the cake just given the fact of how complicated it actually is to make and the fact it's a world record breaking watch. Now next up is going to be an IWC, and it is going to be an Engineer. For me, one of the absolute best releases, one that I would love to own someday. It is the IWC Engineer Perpetual Calendar. I have to say, when you look at this watch in photos, it does not at all do this watch justice because this dial is unbelievable. The contrast of the guilloche with the sunburst subdials, it's just an absolute sight to behold. And of course, in super wearable proportions. This is a watch that comes in a case diameter of 41.6 millimeters, a water resistance of 100 meters, a power reserve of 60 hours, and a retail price of only $36,900. For me, this is an absolute bargain if you look at the perpetual calendar sports watch world. If we're comparing it to, for example, the Patek Philippe Nautilus reference 5740, or even, for example, Vacheron's overseas perpetual, or AP's new perpetual calendars with the, of course, updated movement. This has all that ingenuity, the Kurt Claus perpetual calendar system. Of course, that is an iconic movement, one of the most groundbreaking for its time, yet in a format that I feel is so distinctly IWC and that was absolutely knocked out of the park. And under $40,000, I think that's a price point that is really, really sharp for this watch. I think also that what was a notable release was the release of the Ceramic Engineer, a beautiful, beautiful watch. I'm a big fan of that. Another one that I'm looking at for my own personal collection, although the diameter is a little bit bigger on that one, which kind of sucks. But this perpetual calendar was by far and away my favorite release from IWC, and I think they really, really hit a home run here. Okay, and rounding out my top 5 is the new Patek Philippe Calatraa in platinum, the reference 6196P. Not much needs to be said about this. I think it was kind of the release heard around the world, probably Patek's best Calatraa in the last 50 or so years. An absolutely gorgeous watch in 38 millimeters with that updated movement that was featured in the reference 6119. And of course, it has that beautiful salmon dial with the oxidized white gold hands and indices. This was a home run from Patek Philippe. I think this will sell like hotcakes. I think it will be a very, very long time before you can actually get it at retail. And I think this will actually trade on the secondary market at a significant premium for a very, very long time, which is not the normal case for most Patek Philippe Calatraas. I think this is without question, like Ben Clymer said, one of the best releases from Patek Philippe and probably the best Calatrava they made in 20 years. The only one I can really think of is the 5196P with a sector kind of style dial, but that had the display, the closed case back rather, with that really small movement with the spacer, which was kind of criticized by a lot of Patek Philippe collectors because of course it's a smaller movement, but generally speaking, that was also an absolutely beautiful watch, but this one totally blows it out of the water. I think this is one of the absolute best watches they released. Now, of course, this rounds out my top 5, but there were so many other amazing releases out there to be had. So yeah, to recap really quickly, Geneva Watches and Wonders was an absolutely amazing experience. It was amazing to see the energy, the excitement, all the people, collectors, people I've been talking to online for so many years that I never got to meet in person, or that that I never thought I'd meet in person. So it was an amazing overall experience. Of course, if you didn't get a chance to check out all our amazing content that we released, it's all here on the Bernese Jewelry YouTube channel, so feel free to go back and check it out. There was some amazing interviews showcasing the amazing new releases from all the different brands that we carry here at Bernese Jewelry. As always, if you enjoyed this video, please be sure to hit the like button, subscribe for more videos like this in the future. And as always, my name is Marco from Bernese Jewelry. I'll see you guys in the next one.